We're waiting for a couple more of the panelists to join us.
I got all morning.
That's right. What time is it there, Emil?
It's 8 o'clock, so it's pretty good time.
That's cool. And where are you right now?
I'm in Tokyo.
I've heard of it. All right. It looks like those that said they would be able to be here today are here. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you to the third meeting of the Bitcoin Cash developers for 2019. This meeting has a goal to coordinate work on the items for the May upgrade to maximize the chances of successful inclusion. And I'm going to quickly run through the agenda items before we do the introductions. So the first item on the agenda is the timeline, where we will explain and clarify the ABC release schedule. I'm going to ask Jason to do that. And we expect version 18.8 to be released on February the 11th. Then the cutoff for the upgrade items is the 15th. This means that the time is now to include the upgrade items. Waiting until after 18.8 will be too late. So that's item number one. Second item on the agenda is Null Dummy. It is a report from Dagur on how this is progressing. Are there any roadblocks or issues that others can help with? Recognizing that Dagur's not here, we'll be hoping somebody else can bring that information forward. Item number three, minimal data. Discussion on the approach to take for this. Will it simply be enforcing the verify minimal data flag applies to all executed scripts, or will it apply to ScriptSig only as BIP62 is worded? Will it apply to number codings as well as data pushes? Item number four, Schnorr. Report from Mark Lundeberg and Amaury Séchet on their diffs and how this item is progressing. Also ask if there is anything that others can help with to progress this item and maximize the chances of it being ready. Item number five, 100 byte transaction size, report from Andreas Susani on how this is going. Unfortunately, Andreas just let us know that he's unable to attend, so hopefully someone can cover that who's been talking to him. Item number six, we will ask the participants for any additional topics that we may have overlooked or missed, and confirm that more basic opcodes is not on track for this upgrade. So I'm going to copy that agenda through to the chat window, and people can follow along at home. So without any further ado, I'm going to ask top left-hand corner, Mark, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Mark Lundeberg. As David just said, I'm working on the Schnorr upgrades. So I've been writing the specification for Schnorr and also trying to help out with the Bitcoin ABC implementation.
Thanks, Mark. Next is Emil.
Works better if you're unmuted. My name is Emil Oldenburg. I'm the CTO of Bitcoin.com. For this hard fork, I'm not really working on anything, but I am working on a few new RPC calls that we hope will get merged at some point. But there's no rush, and the RPC calls we're currently working on is validate raw transaction and then a debug script.
Thank you, Emil.
Hopefully will be very useful for debugging.
Great, and we'll get some more detail from you on that a little bit later. Next from Bitcoin ABC, Jason B. Cox.
Hi, I'm Jason. I contribute to Bitcoin ABC. Not a whole lot to say there other than that.
All right, thanks, Jason. Amaury?
I'm Amaury Séchet. I'm the lead developer of Bitcoin ABC.
And it must be dinner time in France. Okay. Chris? Chris,
it's later than that in France, right? Yeah, I'm Chris Pacia. I work on OpenBazaar. I also work on BCHD Golang full node implementation.
Great, thank you, Chris. Antony, can you do a quick introduction?
Yeah, sure. I'm Antony Zegers. I'm known as Mingarian online, and I do various tasks, just trying to help out where I can with Bitcoin Cash stuff.
Great. Thank you, Anthony. So we'll move right on to the first item on the agenda, which is the timeline. Jason, can I get you to run through this for us?
Yeah, so you basically gave the rundown. The Bitcoin ABC is trying to adhere to a 2-week release schedule. And right now that puts us at February 11th for our release of 0.18.8. We want to advance to 0.19 with the hard fork changes. And for a long time now, we've been announcing that, February 15th is our code freeze cutoff for all the hard fork changes, and that would be going into 0.19. So we're telling people, hey, got to get your changes in if you want them to be in time for the fork. Right now, we're looking closely at Schnorr, trying to get that completed in time. I'll let the others talk more about the progress on that. It doesn't look like some of the opcodes will be getting in that we originally wanted to, but that's just because no one has kind of taken those up as owners. But other than that, the development's looking healthy, and we're going to be sticking to that schedule. So we encourage everyone else to keep that in mind.
That's great, Jason. Thank you. Any questions for Jason on the timeline or comments? We will be taking questions from the attendees at the end of the scheduled meeting. Okay, moving on to the next item then. Item number 2, Null Dummy. Does someone have the information from Dagur on how this is progressing?
You mentioned it quickly yesterday. We talked about it briefly, but it's not a big change. So I'm not too worried. Like if Dagur is willing to stick with it, it's going to happen.
Okay. And your sense is that the way things are going, it will be included?
Yeah, it's not a very big item, so it should not be a problem to get that included.
Okay, that's great. All right, so that answers all the questions about item number 2. Does anyone else have any questions or comments about Null Dummy? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 3, minimal data. Discussion on the approach to take for this. Who would like to speak to this?
Well, last I checked, since there isn't really okay, so that's not entirely true. Dagur originally said he would try to be the owner for this item, but he was going to start with Null Dummy. Okay. And so far, I don't think we've seen any progress, and there were some question marks brought up about its implementation. So given that there's only, a little less than 2 weeks or about 2 weeks left, I'm not so sure that this one will be included. It's unclear.
Okay.
I would say it's possible to just flip the switch the same way we do with Null Dummy, at least for the Bitcoin ABC implementation. But so as we have in the agenda, we're asking, is it applied to number encodings? Does it apply to number encodings as well as just the push opcodes, how you do the push opcodes? And the reason is that it's all kind of merged into one thing, at least in the Bitcoin ABC code base. So that's all under one flag. So the thing with pushes, that's just, okay, did you use the smallest push statement? But the thing with minimal number encodings, that affects like 30 opcodes. So it's a bit of a more complicated change, even though it's been in there for a long time. So I guess there's a question of, if you just flip on the flag, is that safe even? I guess that's the main question. And,
are we talking about the minimal encoding where you're forced to remove the bytes that are just,
yeah.
Like they cause a lot of headaches when you write pages script hash scripts.
For the number encodings, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is this exactly. This is the minimal number encoding. Like, in my opinion, I think it's not necessary. You could kind of work around it. And as you say, maybe it causes a headache sometimes, but on the other hand, you can always work around it, right?
Yeah, so like the issues with it is that you could, in theory, you could end up writing a script and get a page script hash script that is unspendable because you messed up the minimal encoding.
Yeah, but currently it would be like almost unspendable because it's a policy, like a relay flag, right? So you'd have to go to a miner to clean that up at the current time, from my understanding.
I thought they were invalid. So like, if you send money to that address, you can never spend it.
Well, yeah. So the question now is, right, I think right now it's like a policy flag. So whether nodes relay those transactions or not, but the question is whether we would bring that into the consensus layer. So yeah, that would make it from like difficult to spend to unspendable, basically. Yeah.
So could I ask for a little bit of clarity on where this will go or whether anything will happen with this for this next upgrade?
I don't think this is going to happen.
Okay.
I think that's
All right.
Yeah, so considering that there's
I think
no
we need to
owner,
be careful with this. Even though like it would be nice to get rid of the minimal encoding rule, like to make it easier to write smarter contracts, we also need to make sure that we don't get any unintended consequences from it.
Yeah.
So we will require more work than we have available time for, or than you guys have available time for.
yeah, I think if someone was dedicating, their full day every day for the next 2 weeks, I guess it would be possible. But we don't really see that happening.
Okay. Any further comments on item number 3 as it's been stated? Hearing none, I'll move on to item number 4. I think Mark's going to take this report on the Schnorr.
Yeah, so the Schnorr implementation in Bitcoin ABC has been coming along nicely. So just a reminder, this is based on some quite old code base that Amaury has written a while ago. And so he's upgraded it, changed it a little bit so that this is actually compatible with the Schnorr signatures that Bitcoin Core is planning to introduce. So that could be useful. It doesn't really change any of the security properties. It's just the way you encode numbers and that sort of thing. And then what I've been working on is trying to develop the exact way that these Schnorr signatures appear in script. So which opcodes can you use them with? What's the exact encoding of all the numbers, that sort of thing. And what we've settled on now is basically you just take this Schnorr signature, it's a 64-byte blob of data, and you stick it in place where you would have a DER encoded ECDSA signature. And the only exception to that is we would refuse to take the size of signature in opcheck multisig. And the reason is that we want to be able to do batch encoding or batch verification with Schnorr signatures one day. And the way opcheck multisig works, it just doesn't let you do that. So we're going to figure out a better way in a later fork how to do Schnorr signatures inside opcheck multisig. Just not right now is not the time to do that. And so the implementation is coming along nicely. I think it's definitely on track. So
has there been
should be seeing that in May.
Just a quick question: has there been enough review for the code?
I would say so. It would be nice to have some more cryptographers take a look at it and whatnot. But yeah.
Amaury, do you want to?
This can happen in the post.
Sure. Amaury, do you want to add anything to Mark's report?
No.
Okay.
It's good. It's good.
Okay, good. Thank you. Just want to make sure we don't miss anything. Anyone on the panel have any questions? No? All right. If there's nothing further on that, we'll move on to item number 5, which is the 100 byte transaction size. This seems to be something that's come up a few times. So I'll just add that so people can see. 100 byte transaction size report from Andreas Usani on how this is going. Andreas not here. Does anybody have a sort of a synopsis of Andreas' report?
Unfortunately, I was hoping for him to get it here today because I was really curious about the progress that's happened over the last week or so.
Okay.
Now, I did take a look at the pull request that he's been working on for the spec, and there has been a little bit of back and forth about what the restriction should be, whether or not it's only restricting against 64-byte transactions to eliminate the potential Merkle vulnerability, or just reducing the 100-byte limit to 64, not including anything less than that, or anything below 80. Those are two different options that are being considered. I noticed Mark also brought up some more concrete evidence that can help influence the decision, like smallest Coinbase is 87 bytes. We found some other examples of small transactions a little bit larger than that. But there has not been a conclusion in this quite yet.
Okay.
Yeah, and the main thing actually is getting it implemented also, and I'm not sure where that's at. So should be easy, but well.
Well, it may be easier to simply bump the limit down because our testing framework and stuff like that should be relatively trivial to bump it down so that anything lower than a certain threshold is rejected with very minimal changes.
Emil, I wanted to ask you actually, because you brought up, I think in the first meeting, that some miners were having problems with short Coinbases, right?
Yeah, well, the issue is that in your mining pool software, you have to configure more rules. So there are multiple rules. So the input is only allowed to be a certain. So the input, the Coinbase string has a maximum size, but depending on how many outputs you have, you also have a minimum size. So like it gives you like a shorter span for your mining pool to operate within. So it needs to it cannot be too big, but it cannot also be too small. So it just makes it easier to make mistakes and mine an invalid block. And also for miners that want to be anonymous and want to put as little data as possible in their Coinbase, with this rule, they're basically forced to fill in the Coinbase string with garbage inputs to make sure that the Coinbase doesn't get too small.
Yep. But I guess by this point, everyone has a workaround. Otherwise, they've had their blocks orphaned by this point if they're being affected by it.
Everyone has already done the work for this.
Nice.
Yeah, to me, this kind of stuff seems a lot of motion that is not providing a lot of value to them. So I'd rather not spend too much time on that. We can customize those limits. Like we don't even have a single use case that is provided for a transaction that is less than 100 bytes. It's okay to do it if most people want to do it, but I'd rather not spend a bunch of resources on that. It's very easy. It's a prototypical byte shading, right? Where everybody has an opinion on the most simple stuff, where it really doesn't matter.
Does anyone want to add to the bike shedding? To the topic? I was being clever there. All right, thank you very much. I think we'll move on to the final topic on the agenda. We want to ask the participants, which is you guys initially, and then we'll throw it open to the attendees. Question is to ask the participants for any additional topics that may have been overlooked or missed, and to confirm that more basic opcodes is not on track for this upgrade. So who would like to speak to this first?
Yeah, so it doesn't look like that the opcodes are going to make it because nobody is doing the work, very simply put. However, there is someone that came up to fix the problem with Segwit coins. So right now, so the way Segwit works, there are various kind of Segwit address, but one of them is pay to script hash that is completely indistinguishable from a regular pay to script hash. And because we don't support Segwit on the BCH chain, then it's not possible to respend those coins. And there is someone that came up and proposed a solution so that a miner can unlock those coins. So the person already submitted a patch. So if that person is willing to do the activation and the proper test for the activation, then I think we can have that.
And you guys are going to continue to follow up with the gentleman who did create that pull request. Yeah. Excellent.
What's the proposal, Amaury?
Essentially to make it non-standard but acceptable, like not against the consensus rules, to spend from Segwit wrapped into a P2SH.
Yeah.
Obviously, that wouldn't be secure.
The specific mechanism is just if somebody has a pay to script hash, which is just pushing data that doesn't require anything from ScriptSig. And that's basically like Segwit, these Segwit addresses, they just push things on the stack. That's not really, a coin that's owned by anyone. So if you see a pay to script hash like this, that just doesn't have anything on the stack except for the redeem script, then you say, okay, this can go through. And so that's a very simple mechanism. You just check, oh, is there only one push in the ScriptSig? And is it a pay to script hash? Okay, then that's fine. But otherwise, we're going to apply that clean stack rule to the, the real scripts that do computations.
I did see there was someone the other day who made like a Reddit post saying they had this problem. Do we know like any miners that would be mining this? Like Emil, would you be mining stuff for people if they asked or no?
We currently don't, but we can set that up. We can set up a service for that.
Yeah.
Okay. So just to let people be aware, the ABC development group on Telegram has had this conversation, where this conversation has been taking place. So those of you that are in the audience who would like to go there, just let us know. If you're not already on there, I see there's 275 members, so pretty good chance that people have seen it already. Antony, you wanted to add something to this as well?
No, not really. I just think it's great that this person is working on this. I guess just a comment, which I'm sure people are already aware of, but if this does get fixed, you should try not to spend the coins on those addresses in Bitcoin, because that reveals the pre-image that would make them spendable. So if this is on track to be fixed, then you might want to try not to spend the coins on the Bitcoin side too, just to make sure that they don't get stolen later. But yeah, I don't have much more to add.
All right, thank you, Antony. Does anyone else want to speak to this? Well, we are at the end of our agenda. I guess everybody's preparing to be ready to have things in place for the upgrade that'll take place on May the 15th. I want to throw the Q&A open to any of the attendees.
I want to, can I bring something up?
Yeah, please break.
So I mentioned 2 meetings ago that we would, Bitcoin.com would really would like to get the too long mempool chain limitation removed. And we've been discussing with some ABC developers about putting in some money to get this fixed and removed. I just wanted to, And there are basically two ways of doing it. Either we remove child pays per parent or we optimize it. And I get the feeling that most people are in favor of optimizing it rather than removing it. Is this correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're both partially correct. If we end up taking the depth 1 or depth 2 take on it, then essentially we're removing the feature for any depth larger than that, and then by that nature we end up optimizing the whole code path because we're only calculating child pays per parent for a depth of 1 or 2, whatever it ends up being.
Yeah. And if we're gonna change it, there's probably not very likely that we will be able to do it within 2 weeks. So I guess this new rule needs to be activated on the November hard fork, right?
Yeah, I think this is what makes the most sense. That seems like, considering
Because
the schedule, that seems not possible to do that, or may.
I think it will be very messy if some nodes activate this before others. So I think everyone needs to activate the rule at the exact same time to avoid messiness.
Yeah, even though those are not consensus rules, it's good to do like we did for the up return. Like the size of the up return is not a consensus rule, but we still activated it like everybody at the same time. And the reason for that is zero conf, right? Because if you have a bunch of nodes that have different policy in what kind of transaction they accept or not, then it opens a lot of opportunities to make zero conf less reliable.
Okay. Well, I would like to formally add changing the too long mempool chain to the November hard fork then, and Beck.com is willing to put in some resources to get it done.
Excellent. Thank you, Emil. That's great news. Okay. Any other questions for Emil on this issue? No? I want to throw it open to the attendees. There is a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. I think it's at the bottom for most everybody. So if any of the attendees have any questions they would like to ask them, now would be the time to do it. And if there is no other questions at this time, which it's beginning to look like there is not, we will close this meeting and make people aware that there will be another meeting in approximately 2 weeks. We'll try and get the notice out a little bit earlier. And I'd like to thank everybody for their attendance today. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Guys, bye-bye.